But that story in Eyewitness News, the Free State High Court ruling yesterday that Muruwadi Cholota, the former PA to Ace Magashule, and that her extradition from the US was unlawful. It's leading to her release and also raising concern about the future of Ace Magashule's trial. So what this does say, the NPA's error is that the NPA had initiated the extradition request, making it invalid because the NPA can't initiate an extradition request. Only the Department and the Minister of Justice can. So how did the NPA overlook that? So what is the impact on Ace Magashule's trial in the asbestos case? Could it spell that it's the beginning of the end already of the broader trial? It weakens the state's case. It opens up the door for the other accused to shift blame onto Cholota and saying, well, it was her. It was all her fault. And she can't be called now to testify because the extradition has now been declared illegal. And another blunder from the National Prosecuting Authority. Blunder upon plunder when it comes to high-profile cases, particularly relating to corruption. And Capture Karam Singh is the Executive Director at Corruption Watch. Good morning, Karam. Really appreciate your time. How does Shamila Batoy explain this, that they shouldn't have applied for the extradition request? It should have come from the Minister of Justice.
Good morning, Lester. It's a long, sordid story, really. I mean, Ms. Cholota initially was meant to be a state witness. They went to America where she was studying to interview her, and she, was not overly cooperative with them. And then they decided to shift her to being an accused. There was an intervening case that went to the Supreme Court of Appeal on the issue of extradition. My understanding is that the NPA had been making these extradition requests for years, and that was a common practice that was accepted by South African courts until we had this case that said, no, this is not a power that the NPA has. It has to come through the Minister of Justice. So, the NPA found itself now up against this jurisprudence. And when the special plea was made, it doesn't seem like they dealt with that special plea properly in terms of the new, the new law that came down from the SCA. I think probably there are criticisms that fingers are obviously going to be pointed at the NPA. But I look at it from the standpoint of why is our law around extradition so complicated, and we haven't been able to successfully bring the Guptas back. Extradition should be a relatively straightforward thing. This is ultimately a kind of a technicality that she's gotten off on. And, I don't know that it necessarily prejudices the NPA's ability to successfully pursue the case against Ace Magashule or not. I think that remains to be seen.
Yeah, but Karam, as of yet, not a single successfully prosecuted case in a number of significant high-profile corruption cases, despite the clear evidence from multiple reports, the Zondo Commission, parliamentary committees, the very detailed forensic investigative journalism reports. The public is seeing this headline and its possible implications and continuing to say, the NPA is doing absolutely nothing in the prosecution of corruption and state capture.
This isn't what we expected to see happen at the end of the Zondo Commission, Lester. We expected to see the cases flow. We expected to see appropriate state witnesses identified and prosecutions taking place. So, yeah, it's absolutely such a concern that we can't seem to prosecute corruption cases as a result of state capture. The NPA's got nothing to show for it.
Is Shamila Batoy and her team tending to build what are overly complex cases? And yes, grand corruption with complex financial systems and entries and how you cover all of that up. Is the NPA tending to rather try and build complex cases instead of prioritizing charges that are easier to prove for quicker wins? It changes the public's attitude to what significance, what impact the NPA is having. And also then what it could do is it could maybe have those who are on the run, those who are implicated, maybe think a little bit differently. If you have a couple of easy wins, you would have someone who is implicated in capture to say, you know what, I'll come forward and let me try a plea here. Maybe then the NPA catches a bigger fish.
Yeah, no, I mean, these are the type of things, we've been saying in the media, we've been saying in civil society, this idea that there has to be some so-called low-hanging fruit, easier cases. There has to be the possibility of engaging with criminally accused to get plea bargains in order to get them to then be witnesses in other cases. It hasn't played out that way. As we know, when you come up with a prosecution approach or a prosecution strategy, that's not a public document that you then go to the public to say, this is how we're doing our prosecutions. So, unfortunately, until we see one of these big cases successfully go from charge to prosecution, the NPA is going to be open to these kinds of criticisms. But as you note, these are complex cases. They're cases that involve multiple parties. It's not just one person. There's lots of people that have been complicit in the alleged offenses. And, to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt is proving a high hurdle in South African courts at the moment.
Shamila Batoy's term as NPA head does come to an end in the near future. Is this maybe a case or maybe an example of maybe trying to expedite her exit, get something newer, fresher, with a maybe more motivated agenda to tackle this, or does Shamila Batoy just continue to see the end of her term as NPA boss?
I don't know that the two are necessarily related. She's got it's a huge responsibility. The National Director of Public Prosecutions has been a vexed position since the days of Bulelani Ngcuka and the dawn of democracy. I think when it comes to the decision around who the new national director is going to be, I think Parliament's going to have to put these questions to the candidates to say, how can you improve on the current situation? How can we ensure that through your office, that we see these appropriate litigation strategies, appropriate implementation, and then the NPA being able to deliver on its mandate. But it's been a very tough road for Advocate Batoy. But I think she'll have to see out her term, and we'll have to put tough questions to the new national director to ensure that that we can improve the situation. It shouldn't be such a challenge to be able to prosecute people for corruption.
Karam Singh, Executive Director at Corruption Watch. Really appreciate your time.